I don't even run on caffeine. Like, I don't know what it is. There's just so much to do. I mean, seriously, Dan, like if 51% of the population is right and we only have one shot on this earth,
right?
Like I want to do it all.
Yeah, all right.
I want to like try it and do it and experience it and help people.
I'm here to balance out your energy.
It's almost time to celebrate manufacturing's finest contributors at the annual Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs Awards Gala. This fun and exciting evening supports the next generation of manufacturers by raising funds for scholarships and educational programs. Help build tomorrow's skilled workforce by attending or participating in the online silent auction. Bid on artwork and other unique items throughout the evening from anywhere. Get all the details at gala.nutsandboltsfoundation.org.
Hello, Dan Davis from the Fabricator magazine here at FABTECH 2023. This episode we'll be speaking with Shanen Aranmor of Weld Like A Girl and also Project Manufacturing. But before we get into that, I'm joined by Ed Youdell, President of the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, the parent organization of the Fabricator, and the owner of this podcast, the Fabricator podcast. So we had big news here at FABTECH this year, rebranding of the organization, and people will be able to see elements of that in the Fabricator in October. But Ed, would you like to kind of describe some of the thought process behind the rebrand?
Absolutely. We're excited about this. Yeah, the organization's 53 years old, and maybe every 53 years or so, we should try to look at ourselves and look internally and what can we do better, how can we serve the market better, how can we help the manufacturing community and the metal fab industry more. We worked with an agency to do a brand awareness study to try to learn about ourselves and what do we do well, what's recognized well. And in the process of that, what we really learned is that our organization was lost in a sea of sameness. So we stepped back and said, how can we break out from the sea of sameness of other associations? And that led to us rebranding the organization, redefining our mission around the idea of supporting a workforce lifecycle. What that means is that at every stage of someone's journey through the metal fab industry, we can surround that person with tools and resources to help them perform their jobs better, be better educated, network, meet people who know the things they want to meet, and make our resources more effective in helping them just be better fabricators.
Yeah, and so working to make us stand out, and as a result, helping fabricating kind of stand out.
Right.
We've done some rethinking of the visuals. So we have a new logo, new color scheme.
Correct.
But we also we're kind of leading with our foundation and what we're doing there. Can you kind of touch upon that?
So our charitable foundation of Nuts, Bolts, and Thingamajigs, its key work is to attract people into manufacturing and the metal fabrication industry. So with that as the centerpiece of our idea of this workforce life cycle, all of our products and services then touch and support that work. So when someone buys an ad in the Fabricator magazine, what they've generally not understood is it's not just going into some vacuous pocket. That money is then transferred and supports the work of the foundation. It supports the work of our education programs. So making the industry aware of everything that they do and connect with us and support us in turn goes back into the industry to help us grow and supports 239 manufacturing camps in 27 states where we introduce 3,500 kids to the idea of manufacturing and working in metal fabrication. And then all the scholarships that we support through this funding. Once we get those people in the industry, then we're there, FMA is there to help them through the next stages of their career.
Right. And I think one of the exciting things, having visited some of these NBT camps, is that will all those kids end up working in a metal fabricating shop? Probably not. But they have an awareness now of what maybe goes on in that fabricating shop. And that awareness makes them a little bit more of an ally for those that want to support manufacturing in the U.S.
I can't guarantee that any of those kids will ever work in metal fab. Right. I can guarantee you, though, if we don't do the work we're doing, none of them will. And fighting the perception gap is really, that's the big issue in manufacturing. It's not a skills shortage, it's a perception gap, because we have to compete with all the other crazy new things there are to do, and jobs and careers. And manufacturing has not done a good enough job standing up and shouting and fighting for the best and the brightest, because we have wonderful jobs, wonderful careers, great innovative companies. You know, the people in the metal fab industry, the owners I know, these are the smartest, hardworking, just great, sharp people that build great companies, and we want to be able to compete for the talent, and this is one way we're going to do it.
Yeah, and for people interested in learning more about FMA, they can check out a new website as well, fmamfg.org. And I would encourage people to maybe consider joining. There's a lot to be learned, a lot of networking to be done from people in all areas of metal fabricating, not just company owners.
Right.
It's a smaller community in terms of against the backdrop of manufacturing in the U.S., but it's a dynamic and vibrant community.
Right.
Yeah. So anything else you'd like to add?
We would love to have people come check us out. Consider being a member company of the organization. It's very inexpensive to join the FMA. It's a great value. The opportunities and exposures we offer really stack up.
Yeah.
If you'll be proactive enough to get involved.
Yeah, I think a good entry way to get involved with FMA is probably annual meeting. A nice event.
It's a great event. Clearwater Beach. Late February. Can't think of a better time to get out of the snowy and cold Midwest and come down and meet with your peers who are very willing and open to talk to you about the same challenges that you're going to find you're having. They may have the solution or an idea that they're willing to share, and that's what's great about this community.
Thank you for joining us, Ed. Now we'll get back to our conversation with Shanen.
FMA's Coil Processing Workshop heads to Toledo. During this 2-day workshop, you'll connect with industry colleagues and gain insight into your toughest processing challenges. The small group setting includes facility tours for you to see equipment in action and discover new solutions for cutting, slitting, leveling, safety, and more. For more information and to register online, please visit fmamfg.org. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back to the Fabricator Podcast. Joined by Rafael and Shanen. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and Shanen is with Shanen Aranmor. I should get that out. She's with Weld Like A Girl, and also project manufacturing.
Project
Am
MFG.
I forgetting anything else that you'd like to mention?
I do a lot of things.
Yes. He's heavily involved in both.
SkillsUSA and
Correct.
American Welding Society.
Yeah. A lot of welding related stuff, but also kind of a little bit more than that as well. And we'll get into that a little bit. But for our listeners and those who happen to be watching on YouTube and other video formats, can you tell our audience about yourself?
Sure. So I'm the founder of Weld Like A Girl. I was the Miller trainer for the West for 6 years, and when I left Miller, I started Weld Like A Girl. Initially, it was intended to be a girls and women's empowerment project using welding, fabrication, and sculpture. I soon learned that boys and men want to learn too, so we're co-ed. We offer classes to the public. So far, I have taught as old as 5 years old and as young as 88.
Wow. Okay.
I also work with some charter high schools, so students maybe who are at risk or special needs tend to go to charter high schools, or maybe they just want a smaller size classroom for learning. But usually these are students who are maybe more tuned into hands-on learning.
Right.
And so I work with them in the mornings as well. And and I do some side projects. SkillsUSA, I'm the National Tech Chair for Welding Sculpture, and I run some state contests in Arizona and California. And then I get to be the lead CWI for Project MFG. So exciting. It's funded by the Department of Defense.
Okay.
And what they're really trying to do is elevate the trades and put real money into contests that are attracting students to the trades, but also to link those students who are participating with actual employers, so that we're not just awarding you for your great performance, but we're also saying, like, here are the people that are hiring, and they have career events where they get to, the students get to meet the employers.
Awesome. And I know Rafael crossed paths with you at the U.S.
SkillsUSA.
Yeah, SkillsUSA.
SkillsUSA competition. And Rafael, you actually interviewed Shanen for an upcoming issue of The Welder, September, October.
That's correct. I have met her actually 2 SkillsUSAs ago. Okay. And then we spoke again this year, and I went a bit more in depth with her on this one. So it's, I guess for people who don't know too much about SkillsUSA, could you describe that to people who are listening
Certainly,
or watching
yes.
right now?
So SkillsUSA is an organization that has high school students competing against high school students, college and vocational students competing against their peer group, and it's more than 110 trades now. I guess we keep expanding every year, but things from plumbing, welding, baking, cosmetology, aesthetics. Really cool one that I like to watch is Teamworks. You've got a carpenter, an electrician, and I don't know if it's a plumber. It's super cool. Masonry, all kinds of things.
The baker supplying croissants for the break.
Well, you're not kidding, actually. Welding used to be across from baking, and that was fabulous. Chocolate chip cookies, they would come out.
Right.
Like, you're just smelling it all day. But so that competition starts at your regional level. So in your state, there's a number of regions, and then if you win at that region, then you advance to the state contest. And if you win at your state, you represent your state in your trade at the national level. And 22 of those trades actually go on to World SkillsUSA. Welding is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Why the kind of involvement in all these organizations? I
know, right?
No, but it's like you're committed. It's obvious, but like, why the commitment?
I was asked that recently by a coworker at the community college where I teach a class. He was a little confused, and I said, we keep talking about this shortage of skilled tradespeople, and I think we really need to put our money where our mouth is. Right. We need to actually make that commitment, and sometimes that's going to mean a sacrifice. It might be your time or your money or whatever, but you need to actually start fishing in a different pond. Right. What are we doing to recruit welders? Oh, we're going to colleges and high schools that already have welding programs. Right. How does that help us fill any void? What we need to do is look outside and say, how do we get to people that haven't even thought about welding yet? Right. They don't even know that welding is a career option, or machining, or whatever skilled trade you're talking about. Yeah. You really need to look at a brand new subset of people. And so I work with Special Olympians, I work with veterans, I work with all kinds of people. I've taught all kinds of different people, and I'd like to extend to the manufacturing community. Why aren't we looking at the autistic population, for example? What do they love to do? Repetition. They like to see success immediately. I'm thinking, take some people with autism, train them on a cobot. There you go. That person would be so happy to do the same thing over and over again. Now, you and I might find that mind-numbing to do the same thing every day, but my experience with the autistic population is that that's extremely rewarding to do the same thing over and over again and see an immediate result. Yeah. I have a young lady that I've worked with. I asked her to do a weld 200 times approximately. So every 2 inches she had to do this particular weld. She did it within, 35 minutes. Everyone else would have slacked off. They would have been outside goofing off because it's boring. Yeah. Right. To her, it was not boring. And I'm like, okay, that's an area that maybe we need to explore. I also think about, we have all kinds of veterans, we have all kinds of people who are in wheelchairs. Manufacturing doesn't look at the disabled population for jobs, because you just think of an able-bodied person, that's what you need. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with TIG welding, but TIG welding is typically done seated. Right. Like, why are we just not looking at those things? And so I guess my commitment is, I really value Made in America. I think American manufacturing, while it has definitely been knocked down, we can bring it back up, but we need to accelerate that process. And if we don't hurry up and do something, we're going to lose the game. So I'm trying to help people think outside the box. Like, how do we start, motivating people and inspiring people and get them to seek out these skilled trades jobs?
Yeah. So what got you involved in this movement?
I used to be a college professor in a completely different area.
What?
Wellness.
Okay.
And then I went back to grad school and became a mental health therapist. And so the job that I did, college professor full-time, and then the job that I did part-time, could only be part-time, maximum 20 hours a week because of the population we were working with. It was sexually abused children and their families.
Okay.
So none of the therapists could be full-time because it's a lot.
Right, yeah.
And the natural step when you're a college professor, if you want to advance, is to become an administrator. Okay. And I will politely decline any offer again to be a college administrator. It was... the thing is, when you're trying to work with people in the field of wellness and mental health, you're trying to get them to a place of a very dark place into a positive place. When you're a college administrator, everyone who walks in your office is angry. Right. Students are angry at faculty. Faculty are angry at administrators, and administrators are just angry because they get all the crap that trickles up. So I didn't find joy in that. And so I had already been taking blacksmithing for a number of reasons. My own stress management, but I taught a stress management class, and not every student was able to listen and do deep breathing and do all the structured relaxation techniques. And so I would always try to find different things that I could recommend to students. And so in the state of Iowa, I took beginning, intermediate, and advanced boxing, for example, just things that I could relate, to students, try to give them some different avenues. So I'd already taken blacksmithing, I don't know how many times, because it was free at the college I was working at. Right. And the blacksmithing instructor said, this class is going away at the end of the semester because I'm retiring. And I thought, blacksmithing is cool. It's so hot, it's cool. Yeah. You take a piece of metal, you stick it in a hot forge, you pull it out, it's red hot, you pound the crap out of it, you get all your aggression out, and at the end of the day, or the end of the project, you can hand it to your mom and say, Mom, I thought of you the whole time I made this. Right? So you can tangibly get and productively get stress out. So I went to the head of the welding department and I said, I'm a novice blacksmith. I've been taking the same class over and over again, but I'm a really good teacher. So if you'd like, I could be your placeholder this next semester. And he said, I'll take a chance on you, but you have to take a welding class.
Oh, wow.
And when he made that, I said, okay, made that rule. I joke that I now understand what addiction is. I took that welding class and I was absolutely just, oh my gosh, I love this so much. The next semester, I took 2 more classes. The next semester, I took 2 more. I just kept taking them. And he's like, when are you going to get this degree? I was like, dude, I don't need this degree. And ironically, he asked me, would you be on the SkillsUSA fabrication team? And I said, no, thank you. I said, why not? I said, I didn't grow up with tools. Mm-hmm. Fabrication team is a team of 3. The 3 of us would be relying on each other. What if you asked me to do something, use a tool, and I screwed up? Then I would let my team down. Right. And I just didn't have the confidence. And so he asked me again a couple months later, and I said no. He asked me again a few weeks later, would you agree to be the alternate to the alternate? I said, that sounds safe. I can do that. The next day, I was the alternate, and within 2 weeks, I was on the team. Reluctantly, I did not want to be on this team, but I was all right, I'll do it. And we won at our regional, we won at our state, and we went to nationals. So we practiced a lot to go to nationals. And it wasn't always fun. Yeah. Our team didn't always get along. It was some group dynamics going on that were not always positive. Right. I was the only female. That was part of the issue for them. But when we came back from nationals, even though we didn't stand up on the podium and we didn't win, I practiced so much and I got so much experience when I came back to our program, because I wasn't finished yet with my welding degree. A student said, hey Shannon, can you fix this machine? And I listened and I went, yes, I can. And so I went to the advisor and I said, yep, I'll get the degree. And I want to work for the #1 welding manufacturer in the country. And he said, okay, teach for me for a bit, get some experience. I did some fabrication, and then I wound up getting a job at Miller Electric.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you had no background.
Okay. Truthfully, in 7th and 8th grade, I took metal shop, and in 8th grade, I took metal shop 2. Okay. I was the only girl who had ever taken it. And at the end of the year, the boys were really angry when I walked across the stage to get the metal shop award.
Okay.
But we didn't do any welding.
All right. Wow.
It was all, like making a screwdriver and making a box and spot welding and, nothing. We never had a helmet on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I asked this a number of times too if I, guests or interview subjects, but, what is that you like most about welding, just what keeps you going.
I know. Have you ever welded?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll relate to this. There is something about putting the hood down, especially once you know what you're doing, that's very meditative.
That helps.
Yes. Well, when you're first doing it, it's not meditative. It's frustrating.
Right.
But there's something that's meditative about putting the hood down. But I think the most important thing for me is at the end of the day, you can see the fruits of your labors.
Right.
Even if it's a mess. I remember at the beginning of my welding program looking at these welds like, oh man, this is rough. But I kept them. I kept all of my welds except for the first week of stick class. I didn't think about it. I kept them all in this giant Rubbermaid tote. It was huge. I had to like put my feet against the wall to push it across the room. And then I was like, I'm not wasting this, because this is like the ugly parts and the beautiful parts. That's all part of my journey, right? And that's also a lot of metal to just throw out. So years later, my husband, I said, do you want to take maybe like welding sculpture or something just to know what I do? And I wasn't a sculptor at the time at all.
Right.
My background's in fabrication. So he decided to take the class, and then the next day he said, well, would you take it with me? I said, sure. Now I know what I'm going to do with all of those pieces that I've been saving. So I cut them all on the diagonal, and I made a sculpture, and it lives in our front yard. And when I was building this, a couple of the students in class were like, ooh, those are some rough welds. I said, yes, they are, but you know what? We all have to start somewhere.
Right.
But at the end of the day, even at the beginning, you've put things together. Yeah. When you're a college administrator, you're taking papers from this side of your desk, doing a lot of keyboard, and then you're putting the papers to the other side. There wasn't anything really, for me, it wasn't rewarding. I'm sure for other people it is, but for me, I didn't have that tangible, like I just actually accomplished something.
Right.
And you can also really see your progress. Every single day you can get better. You can say like, okay, my welds are either getting more consistent or straighter or whatever it is, or you're learning more tools. You just keep adding, I guess. It's really cool.
Yeah. Were you surprised to find yourself along this path? What would 15-year-old Shanen say?
15-year-old Shanen probably would have been like, man, I wish my high school had metal shop classes. I missed it in high school.
Could that have, if there was more to offer in your high school, do you think your life would have taken a different path?
The only metal work that I could do there was jewelry, and I did that.
Okay.
But I was the first person in my family to go to college.
Okay.
And that was the push.
Yeah.
Because that was the time. Everyone's going to college. Everyone, you're going to go to college whether you like it or not.
Your story's kind of like a big capsule of what was happening in general.
Exactly. And so without guidance, I think about this all the time. I ask my students, if I teach a class or two at the community college, and every semester I say, raise your hand if you are the first person in your family to go to college.
Yeah.
And everyone who did, I said, how much guidance have you had? None. My family, they didn't go to college. They didn't know how to advise me. So I picked a subject I liked and studied it. Yeah. Biology. Great. What do you do with a 4-year biology degree?
Right.
Nobody thought down the road because we didn't know. We weren't prepared for that. So, I feel like we do a better job with kids now, but I definitely want us to see what are your options when you look down the road. Now, the cool thing is all of these pieces do tie together because I've been told when I worked for Miller that I'm like a life coach with a welding helmet.
Yeah.
And that's what I do now. I mean, my classes are based on empowerment. The students that I work with from the charter high school, they start welding on day one. They start welding not in a booth, not lines, not beads on plate. They actually work on a project. We've done a bunch of signs for, some of them are like sculpture type things, some of them are practical, but we do signs for the state park, city parks, our city of Yuma. We've done a whole bunch of different things. My students are finishing up some kind of like, imagine a giant cookie cutter of holiday ornaments and Christmas trees and that kind of stuff. We're doing those. They're going to be wrapped with lights at Christmas time, or at the holiday time. They're going to be in the planter boxes on downtown Main Street.
Oh, cool.
Those kids made those.
Yeah.
And on day one, they start building. That way they can start getting that sense of confidence that I got.
Right. Do you see welding as being like that stepping stone to a future?
Absolutely. I already know that 2 of the students that I've worked with in the past, they're on that path. They are on the path. One of them has a full ride to Lincoln the Lincoln Tech in Denver.
Okay.
And one of them has a full ride to Tulsa Welding School in Tulsa. And they are both students right now.
Oh, wow.
And they're going to be pipe welders. And they're going to be making bank.
Yeah.
And they saw welding in my shop as an opportunity to explore and figure out their career path. And we've got several other students coming through that I see them choosing this career, not a job, it's a career. And that's what we talk about. You know, it's a lifetime set of skills you're never going to lose.
Right.
You can always build on them. You can change your mind later on, but you at least have something that will support you and your family.
You mentioned earlier that you taught as young as I think 5. Did you say 5?
As old as 5, because they say I'm 5 years old.
Okay.
And you say young as 88.
Okay.
Yeah, you're young
as young as 80. Okay.
It's like Baby Huey with a cigar.
Are there similarities and differences between someone teaching someone at that young age or that old?
That's funny. I haven't thought about that much, but when I teach plasma cutting, I always use a drag shield. And a drag shield is an accessory that you can put on the tip of the plasma torch. You don't need to use it, but it allows you to touch the metal. So on the younger end of the spectrum and the older end of the spectrum, people aren't as coordinated, typically. I mean, I don't want to be insulting to anybody, but typically that is, kind of an accurate thing. So you use the drag shield. That way, if they touch the metal or they don't, nothing bad happens.
Right.
And, you might have to give them a little extra guidance, but that's okay. So, for example, last spring in my shop, I had 22 second graders come through. The teacher is a fabulous teacher, and she asked, could we come to your shop and do real welding? I was like, heck yes. These are 7 and 8-year-olds. That's awesome. They've never seen welding before in their lives. We live in a $3 billion ag community. We don't have a lot of manufacturing. So they'll see maybe John Deere tractors or New Holland tractors or something, but they won't see welding and machining
and this is in Yuma,
and manufacturing.
Arizona.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're welcome this winter when you're eating anything that's dark green leafy vegetable. We grow it in our valley. 95% of the dark green leafy vegetables are grown in that valley.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of trivia.
Right? So the kids will be exposed to ag, but they don't get to see anything in manufacturing. So about 15 minutes before they got there, the high school students that I'm working with from this charter high school, I said, okay, infield change. I look at my watch and I said, about 15 minutes, we're going to have 22 second graders in here. So I want the extra small gloves, extra small gloves over there. I want the extra small jackets, and I'm kind of giving everyone directions where to put stuff. And they said, what, miss? We got, kids? I said, yeah, you're going to teach them. What? Miss, why didn't you tell us that? I smiled and I said, would you have come to school today? And they said, no. And I said, well, there. So that spark is, I think, one of the most important things. That was possibly the best moment I've had so far at Weld Like a Girl, because I was ready and I was geared up. I was going to jump in and rescue somebody if I needed to, but I didn't need to. The students, these big self-identified thugs, that's what they call themselves, these big dudes are working with these little teeny kids, 7 years old, and they're teaching them, and they're getting down on their level and explaining things and helping them hold stuff and getting them fitted up for their gear. And I just stood back and I watched, and I'm like, this is magic. These kids, some of the charter high school students that I work with don't have opportunities a lot that they hear, hey, you're doing a great job. They don't get positive reinforcement often. And so they did a great job. I mean, amazing. I was trying to contain my energy, and I was just so proud of them. But also the second graders were so inspired. Their teacher had them write a thank you note. And a lot of the notes were, thank you for the sparks. I love welding. I want to come back. I want to be a welder. And a couple of the kids were honest and said, I really like the ping pong. Actually, it's polypong. I have a polypong table in my shop too.
Okay.
1 or 2 of them said, I really like the polypong best. But most of them were, I love welding. How funny that they might never have seen welding before. And now we might have just changed the trajectory of how many kids. I don't know. It's
kind of interesting that it seems to come back to teaching again. Did you have a feeling it would do that?
I feel like I've never not taught. When I worked for Miller Electric as a trainer, that was my job, welding process, power sources, inside and outside of the machine, try to troubleshoot. I love that. But I think part of it is that I'm the older sibling, and so when I would go to school, I would go home and teach my sister what I learned in school that day. So our mom was a huge proponent of reading. She read to us, and she also had us read, and so we were able to read. I mean, obviously children's books, but by kindergarten we were reading. My sister was also writing because I had been writing.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home from school and teaching my sister multiplication on flashcards. And so she was like a first grader and knew some of her multiplication tables. So she can thank me for how smart she is. She taught herself Gaelic in 8th grade and
kids in that Gaelic language.
Yeah, right, I know.
Yeah.
And Japanese when she was like in her early 20s. So
wow. What's she up to now?
She runs a multi-million-dollar internet security company.
No kidding. Wow.
Yep. It's called Rockability.
Yeah. How many languages does she speak?
Well, she just moved to Portugal, and so she and her husband learned Portuguese for the last year before moving over there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
And she took Spanish in high school, so I mean, she could probably fumble through about 4 or 5 of them.
Like a bright family.
We're just like really motivated. I don't know.
That's cool.
I don't even run on caffeine. Like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's just there's just so much to do. I mean, seriously, Dan. Like, if 51% of the population is right, and we only have one shot on this earth,
right?
Like, I want to do it all.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I want to like try it and do it and experience it and help people.
I'm here to balance out your energy. So, what led to Weld Like a Girl?
So, unfortunately, it was a sad event. I had 2 deaths in my family within 13 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And one of them was not a surprise because he was older, but the other one was a devastating shock to our family. And I think that second death really made me reevaluate my life.
Mm-hmm.
For Miller, I was supposed to travel 50%, but I traveled 100%.
Yeah.
And that's common,
Right.
And we only had 5 trainers in North America, so I'm covering Denver and West, Edmonton, Canada A, and South. So I had a huge territory. But I thought, if I had only been traveling 50%, I would have been home more, and I would have been able to spend more time with them before they passed. And that really, it hit. And I looked at my husband and I said, I think I'm done. I mean, I loved being a Miller trainer. I love being part of the A team. Like, they're here at the show, and I'm getting big hugs, and I love my Miller family. But I just said, I don't know how long I have. I mean, I'm planning on 106. My second choice is 96, but I don't really get a vote on that. So I want to just do as much as I possibly can. And I feel like, when you're in a job where you have set parameter, a set of parameters, you can't always do some of the things that you want to try. And I would always want to stay for an extra day in, say, Ogden, Utah, and run a women's welding workshop, because I'd been asked a number of times, but that wasn't in my job description. So I created my own job description, and turns out it is in my job description.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So it was a sad thing, but it also really allowed me to do some of the things that I think are important and explore things. Like, I didn't know about Project MFG, but I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not had my own business.
Right.
Then it also turns out that approximately a year later, my mom passed. And so I wouldn't have been able to be there with her for the last 3 months of her life had I been working for a corporation. Right. I mean, obviously you can take family leave, but there's no one else to take over your job when you're in a role like I was in. So it worked out oddly better for our family to do that.
That's great.
But yeah, one of the people that passed was my special needs aunt.
Okay.
And she was the one that taught me how to play Go Fish, cheat at Monopoly, and she taught me about compassion.
Oh, wow.
She was possibly one of the kindest people on the planet. I can't tell you enough of how much love she had for people and how helpful she was. And about 3 months after setting up Weld Like a Girl, all the motivational quotes, positivity, decorations, I looked around and said, Cheryl would be comfortable here. She would feel safe here. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I didn't mean for it to be that way. And we invite Special Olympians in all the time, and it works out.
Yeah.
It's the universe has come around, I think.
Yeah. No, you got to be in tune with it. It's definitely.
Would you like to expand Weld Like a Girl beyond where it is right now? I don't know if that's something that you've thought about. Or.
Yeah, so about a year ago we bought a building, so we grew. We outgrew the space that we were renting for probably about 2 years ago, 2 years prior to moving. So we bought a building, and so we have a lot more space. We doubled the number of booths, getting new equipment, and brand new welding equipment, applying for different grants to get CNC plasma. And that is partly because of the high school students, but also because I work with some veterans, and we have a group in town that works with homeless veterans and trying to home them. What I really want to do is give them a weekend workshop to teach them how to use the CNC plasma. And then now they have an employability skill that they can go to a company and say, hey, I can do this. I don't know where that's going to go. I hope that it's going to be, really helpful, but that's one of the pieces. Another thing I'd really like to do, as a result of my relationship with Project MFG, I've learned a lot about machining. I am not a machinist. I don't know how to program anything yet. But what I want to do is get a very small unit and be able to show children in our community how to machine. Like, my dream is to get like one of those, I think it's a Mini or something, and it's a Haas machine or some FABTECH machine, something like that.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like a desktop unit,
almost,
correct?
Yeah. Take like a bar of soap, cut it in half, and have the kids program their initials, and then they get to take that home with them.
Right.
The second graders coming through, they could do a station over here of welding, a station over here they can look at the CNC plasma, over here they can look at the CNC machine, maybe laser weld. So I want to have an opportunity for not just kids. I mean, we also have people that are reevaluating their lives, career changes, or people who are welders that don't have certain skills. Maybe they want to refresh their skills, or maybe they want to learn how to do something that they've never done before. I want to be able to have all of those tools at hand that I can help teach them.
Yeah.
We've done some really interesting projects too, because we are a fabrication shop. We're like a working fabrication shop that is a school. Sort of like that's how it's turned out.
Right.
And as a result, I have some interns and some volunteers that have interesting skill sets. So because of where we live, we have YPG, Yuma Proving Ground, in our area. And so we've gotten some odd repairs from subcontractors with the government. And so we'll get things to fix that we don't know what they are. And we won't be allowed to know what they are.
There you go.
And I've done some inspection, because I'm a welding inspector. I've done some inspection on some things that I can't know what it is. And I said, well, I have to have a blueprint. And they're like, can't give you that. It's confidential. I said, well, I can't tell you if it matches the blueprint if I can't see the blueprint.
Right.
But yeah, the projects that we've repaired, I've had an opportunity. A couple of my volunteers, one in particular, she's a retired Boilermaker, and so she loves when we get some weird project, because she misses welding, but she is retired, and she just wants to do it once or twice, like 1 or 2 days a week. And so, but then the students watch her, and they kind of look over her shoulder, and they're learning a lot from her, even though she's kind of quiet.
Right.
She'll talk to them if they ask questions. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's awesome to have another mentor for them to be right there.
Yeah.
So you never know how inspiring you can be to someone.
Right. So in a way, your life hasn't changed too much. You're still kind of, you use the term wellness coach.
Yep.
It seems like it's almost welding is the avenue that allows you to kind of do what you almost set out to do originally. Is that fair?
Exactly, yes. My official title that I have given myself is Chief Wellness Welder.
There you go. If you're writing your own job description, you can give your own
you
title
may as well.
well.
Exactly, yeah. In fact, the American Welding Society board meeting this weekend, someone introduced me as, described Weld Like A Girl as a mental health facility that happens to use welding.
Okay.
And I was like, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
We are fabricating things, but there's a reason why you're doing it. If you were to come into my shop on some random Tuesday, I'd be like, hey Dan, these two over here are going to teach you how to do. They're gonna teach you how to weld this thing, and we'd gear you up. We'd talk about safety, and then I would have the students show you what you need to do, and I'd be standing there to make sure that they were telling you the right thing, and that their demonstration was appropriate and everything. But I really want to have them be empowered enough that they could teach you walking in off the street if you didn't know anything about welding, so that you'd be safe, but you'd also feel part of the team.
Well, the soft skill development is something that a lot of employers are looking for, almost more than the hard skills, because they feel like they can train that.
Absolutely.
And just having individuals come in that can just be a good teammate is almost like job quality one they're after.
Exactly. I think about it like you can teach someone to weld, or you could teach them a skill, but you can't teach them to have heart.
Right.
You can't teach them to have a personality. You can't teach them. The only thing you can do is be a good role model for them, and hopefully they'll pick it up if they don't have it already.
Yeah, and maybe coax it out of them.
Right, exactly. I like that. Coax it out of them. Yeah, because some of these kids are like, no, I don't want to be a team player.
They've been beaten down, like you were describing.
Exactly. But I have had a student call me, and he said, "Hey, miss, you know that sculpture we did on Avenue A?" I'm thinking, the one that's 15 feet long, 9.5 feet tall, 6.5 feet deep, and filled with 12 tons of rock. I might remember that. Yeah, he goes, "Hey, miss, I was driving someplace I shouldn't have been, and I passed our sculpture, and I turned around." And I'm like, anytime you have thoughts about, anytime you are faced with a decision that's a hard one like that, and you're about to make a bad choice, I want you to go sit and meditate in front of that sculpture. It's a welcome sign. It's a welcome sign. The students the semester before were asked by our city to come up with some ideas that would be representative of our community. And so we had all different things. We have a balloon festival. We have Mado Midnight at the Oasis. It's a classic car show. There's a water tower that's kind of distinctive to them. And so anyway, we came up with different ideas, and the city chose a mock-up Mado car. So we have parts of all different kind of classic cars represented, and then we have this big water tower. And it says welcome in the middle with the city's crest, but the car is coming out of the mountain range, and so the city put solar lights in the headlights, so it's always there. You can see the headlights at night, and they paved with actual asphalt and painted it the way it would be on the street, so it looks like it's riding on the road. And that was an amazing endeavor. The students had to figure out how much metal to get, and I said, well, we need to be good stewards of the city's money. So we need to order enough but not excessive. But we also don't want to go to them and say, oh, hey, we need like 10 times more.
Right.
So I said, all right, we're going to do this water tower. It's going to be a 5-foot diameter. How much metal do we need to do the rim on the outside? Blank, blank, they have no idea. Okay. I said, is it 2 pi r or pi r squared? Miss, you're not going to make us do math, are you? And I was like, what do you think fabrication is? We have to know how much material before we can even do this. And so that was a shock to them. I think they're less anxious about math. I'm not going to say they're not anxious about it, but and I'm not going to lie, my geometry teacher is rolling over in his grave on a daily basis because I put my hand on my hip in geometry saying, I'm never going to use this again. And unfortunately or fortunately, I use it every single day. But that particular sculpture, we literally had piles of metal, and then we had an unveiling about 3 months later. And the students were inside of it. It was incredible. And it's life-changing. It was transformative to them. So
it's great that it gets to be part of the community now.
Exactly, and it will always be there. It's a permanent installation. That's kind of what I think. You take anybody and you make something that's bigger than yourself. That's important. Making something larger than you. There's a shift in your mindset that happens. And then you have a sense of pride every single time you drive past that. And they can show their kids and their grandkids, and their families came out to the unveiling. And so we try to connect with people in the community, the city or the county or the state parks, so that we can do permanent installations. Because while I do want them to take things home, like we have a couple of days where it's coming up on Mother's Day, let's blacksmith a rose or something, but I want them to be part of something bigger.
Right.
Since you bring up sculptures, I wanted to ask you about just the sculpture competition at SkillsUSA, National SkillsUSA. So,
you saw them this year.
I did see them. Yes, I went. Okay, your thoughts on what you saw this year? I believe there were like 50 or so, right?
There were more than that. Yeah,
more than that.
I think this year was a little bit smaller than in some years past. But I think schools are still recovering from budgets after COVID.
Right.
So while there was definitely a lot of involvement, because welding sculpture is not one of the 22 that advances to world, it's not always the priority for a lot of states. Individual welding does advance.
Right.
But as far as what we saw, sometimes, Rafael, it's hard to see the difference between the high school and the college, or the post-secondary, I should say, secondary and post-secondary. Sometimes you don't know which is which, because some of those high school students have spent so much time. I mean, it was really telling. There was that one sculpture that everyone just assumed had been buffed with an actual grinder and a buffing wheel. That kid hand buffed it himself and didn't put any clear coat on it. It was just that shiny.
Wow.
And so, there's a lot of pride and workmanship that goes into some of these sculptures. I'm super grateful to SkillsUSA that now that we're in Atlanta, all 3 welding contests are next to each other. Okay. It used to be, when Welding Sculpture first started, it used to be that they were like in the bowels of a building in Kansas City. It's like a mile away. By the time you found it, you were exhausted and hungry, and you didn't want to actually go and look at these sculptures anymore. And each year, each time we've moved, we've had different space, and so they've put us closer and closer. But this year, we have, or in the last 2 years in Atlanta, you go down the escalator, and you see welding sculpture, individual welding, and welding fabrication all right there, which I think is super powerful, because now when people are considering careers or they're exploring things, you really get to see everything. You get to see building things. You get to see, at the fabrication, you get to see high level, very high skill individual welding, because that is, you're under the hood by yourself. And then you get to see the beautiful side of it. And so I just feel like it's an incredible opportunity, and I'm just very grateful for the people that have allowed that at Skills, because it hasn't always been that way. Yeah. The other thing is, all 3 contests we pull together. So when they're trying to decide about, how much space one of us is going to get, we always make sure to check in with the others. Like, if I get this space, does that take that away from you? And we Ed Norman is the chair of welding, the individual welding contest. He told me this year, he goes, you know what, right now, we don't need this space. So he gave me, I think, 12 feet. 12 feet by that length, that's a lot. And we got to, we really got to change things around, because we introduced live welding this year at our contest, which we've never done. Usually what happens with the welding sculpture contest is that students create this sculpture throughout the school year. Approximately January or early February will be the regional contest. That's when they have to stop working on it. Right. The only thing they're allowed to do is clear coat it. They can't put any paint or patina on it. Can't add anything to it after the regional contest. They use the same sculpture for regional and for state and for nationals. So when we have interviews, you hear, we did this, and I'm like, who's we, the mouse in your pocket? So there was a lot of question, like, how much of this was the advisor, how much of this was a parent. And so for years we've been talking about adding a live welding component just to kind of check in with students. Yeah. And so this year we had students draw from a hat, and the welding process, and we're going to do this next year too, they had a welding process that they had to do. They had to set up the machine. They had to do just a simple weld, whatever position it was that they drew, and but just one weld. And then that weld couldn't be scored because it was a demonstration part of our contest, but next year it will be scored. Oh, wow. And what they'll do next year is they'll draw one cutting process, either oxyfuel cutting or plasma cutting, and then they'll draw one welding process. So it could be SMAW, GTAW, GMAW, or FCAW, so flux, stick, TIG, MIG. And then they're going to have to do one cutting, one welding process, and that will be part of their scoring rubric.
So who won, actually? Because I saw the names, but I couldn't figure out, which sculpture
Every
won.
year I ask them to put the photograph of the winning sculptures, and they just, I don't know. I think it's a different group that does the PowerPoint at the end. I think the turtle, the turtle that was that high polish, I think that was second. Okay. On the secondary, on the high school. I have the pictures on my phone. I can't remember at the moment, but it was close. I mean, it was within points. Wow. And it's a 1,000-point contest, so you figure if you're within 5 points, that's a really good contest. Yeah. The one that won for post-secondary, it was the elk on the rock. It was in sort of the far corner. Oh wow! By the walkway. I don't know if you remember that. And then the mechanical one was second. Okay. And I'm blanking on. It's been a minute since Skills. Yeah. I've done a few things.
We'll update that story.
Yes. Yeah.
You can find that at thefabricator.com.
There you
go. Before we go, project manufacturing. That's a pretty high profile endeavor. Yes. How long have you been involved, and kind of what's your take from it?
Sure. I am extremely proud of being a part of that team. They are fabulous people. Project MFG, funded by the Department of Defense, so the government is looking at the skilled trade shortage very seriously. One of my favorite people, one of my favorite quotes is from Adele Radcliffe, who works, I think, at the Pentagon. And she says, there is more than one way to serve your country. Right. By being a skilled tradesperson, you are serving your country. And she's an amazing human being, and she's very inspiring. And basically what they're trying to do is revise and revitalize the American manufacturing movement. I think that not only is it the fact that they offer financial rewards for the competitions, but also they do a program called Clash of Trades. It's on YouTube. And so it's very like reality TV show kind of.
I mean, it's well done.
Yeah,
it's high-end, it's high-end work.
The production company won the Webbies last year.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so they're definitely a group to watch out for. I think that Project MFG is growing. They do additive manufacturing. Each of the different competitions that they do is sort of inspired by the whatever part of industry is supporting it. So for example, we go to Philly Shipyard, Newport News, Ingalls Shipyard, and we went up to Rhode Island. So those tend to be Navy ship or submarine themed, and then there's also the medical field that we were, with our last contest, the machinists made an artificial hip.
Okay.
They made the acetabulum, the ball and the stock of a hip replacement, and then the welders welded a stainless steel pressure vessel in an autoclave.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, so it's real life stuff. I mean,
high-end stuff.
And then the additive manufacturing, I'm not a part of that one, but that one sort of screams Department of Defense. They had to create something that could, like a basket that could pick up an egg, and a drone would be able to pick it up and carry it somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
the Pentagon up to.
I know, right? But it's I think it's exciting for students to be involved in that kind of thing. The fact that there's financial benefit adds some teeth to it.
Right.
But I think the people behind Project MFG just really have their hearts and their brains in the right place.
Yeah.
It's an amazing endeavor, and I hope to continue with it.
That's awesome. The new season?
So each year they have they just launched, I think, the National Welding League. They just did a welding contest. So that's an interesting thing too. They are providing an opportunity for people who aren't part of the regional contest, aren't part of a school, or you can actually weld a project, a pre-designed project that you get from Project MFG. You score yourself, you ship it to them, they score it, and then they take the top from that, all of those, and then they have a national contest from there.
Oh, wow.
So you could be from anywhere, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then, so they'll have welding only contests, and then they have the integrative manufacturing, which is like welding and machining, and then they have additive manufacturing. They've also done some international.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I know it's starting to get some attention. I'm
I was about
excited.
to say, what spare time do you have?
Well, I haven't been able to do the international yet, but je parle français, so I'm more than happy.
See, just like your sister.
I'm more than happy to go over.
How many languages do you know?
2 and a little bit of sign language.
Wow.
We have a deaf dog. I taught him 29 signs.
What was it like working with Eddie Saunders on that show? I know he's a high energy guy.
Oh,
Eddie's
my gosh.
here.
I saw
Eddie's
walking
here.
around.
I have to find him. You should usually be able to hear him before you can see him. He's not a huge person, but he's got this huge personality. Eddie was amazing to work with. He and I had a blast. He would be like super high energy, and then I'd be like all excited about what he said, and then he would be the same, and the camera crew was laughing the whole time. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than some people that we have to work with, because you have to like pull things out. I'm like, but you get people that are passionate about what they are doing, and also about the students, and I feel like it's pretty easy to work with people like that.
Yeah, it's people, it's contagious.
It is.
Yeah.
And Eddie Saunders is, he's such a lively person, and he's knowledgeable, and he's inspiring.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Rafael, you got anything else? Mr. High Energy host?
I was going to say,
Right.
I feel like it's like like it kind of increases as it goes over here, and I'm like, you probably had to put me over here to.
Words that'll never be used to describe Rafael and myself.
Right. Okay.
There you go.
High energy.
I guess I do have one more question. You had mentioned about you were looking for money to possibly expand, Weld Like a Girl. I'm wondering just what type of money, what type of grants are there, for these types of efforts?
Well, right now, we're looking at trying to get a CNC mill. Well, a CNC plasma cutter would be first because of the project I was talking about with the veterans. But I'm not sure what's all available yet. At the moment, Weld Like a Girl is not a 501c3, but we are starting a Weld Like a Girl Foundation, and that will probably help access some of that grant money. But if you have any ideas, I'm more than happy to do my homework, and I can write grants if I need to. But we were so fortunate. In 2019, we got the Spark Something Great Award from Hypertherm.
Okay,
so
right.
we got a Hypertherm Pro Max 45, and that was fabulous. And we use it every day, except this week, which is, I'm kind of like jonesing for my plasma cutter, but we use it all the time. And then we did recently get a grant from Airgas because of the charter high school that we work with. It was a high school grant for $10,000.
Awesome.
So that was very helpful. We got a bandsaw and a fabrication table out of that, and that both of them are going to be used probably and abused, but unfortunately because of kids. But I think some of the larger pieces, the CNC machines, even if you get a small one, you're still talking probably $50,000. And I don't have that in my back pocket. I don't know if you do, but
Garrett does.
So we're
it was in his other shirt.
Yeah. I left it at home, like my business cards.
Yeah.
But I think I'm kind of at the beginning stages of trying to figure out where that even is.
Okay.
But I think once we have a 501c3, we'll have some more opportunities available to us. But we also know, if you follow us on social media, we thank the people that have helped us along the way, and we tag them all the time. And 2019 is a long time ago, but we still thank Hypertherm a couple times a quarter, just because I remember, like, oh my gosh, this would not be possible without you.
Right.
And don't think that it doesn't get unnoticed, because when you're a small organization and you're trying to grow, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
The reason why we could be in existence is because people in our community said, we have the scrap metal, do you want it?
Right.
Heck yeah. The cost of steel went up 500%.
Correct.
I wouldn't have been able to stay alive if not for some of the people that literally don't need this anymore. For example, we have a company in our town called Liberty Motorsports. They get all of their ATVs shipped on metal pallets. At that time, when I started, only Honda reused those pallets.
Really? Wow.
All the rest of those pallets went into the landfill, or sometimes you can get money at the recycling, but sometimes you couldn't. And so he would save different things for me, and I would go and pick him up in my truck, and I started weighing down my truck. So then about once a year, he'll come out and he'll have his guys come out with a flatbed trailer and deliver stuff to me. And we cut it all up, and you wouldn't even believe some of the things we made out of it. I know, it takes a village, right?
Every little bit helps.
Absolutely, yeah. And they know, they see what we're doing with the kids. Yeah. My husband's a retired chief of police, and he's gotten a whole bunch of different welding certifications as a result of being married to me.
There you go.
And so they look at John and I, and they say, we see the way you're trying to positively impact our community. We're a border town. It's a transient population. We have a Marine Corps Air Station, 5,000 Marines. So it's always kind of in flux where we're at. And so we're trying to provide a little bit of stability for kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome you're making the impact in a lot of different ways.
I don't know if you're familiar with the starfish theory, but a woman's walking down the beach, and the tide has just come up, and all these starfish are on the sand, and they're going to die. So she picks them up, hucks them in the water, picks another one up, hucks them in the water, and there's an older gentleman there, and he says, you're never going to be able to save them all. And she picks up one and hucks him back in and goes, save that one, didn't I?
Then threw one at the guy.
Well, no. Not in that story, at least. I would be better off kicking it at him. I was a soccer player. I can't throw over the darn. So
that's why you do what you do, and I'm littering the internet with this nonsense. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you
Shannon.
so much for asking me to be here.
Yeah, it was
a pleasure.
great. I hope you get increased time to do all that you do, and you get a chance to enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
Thank you. I love what I'm doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Rafael.
Yep, thank you.
Gareth?
Where can we find you on
socials?
Yeah.
So Weld Like a Girl. On Instagram, Weld Like a Girl with underscores in between. And I'm not going to lie, I pretty much abandoned Twitter. On Facebook, it's Weld Like a Girl. I think it's Weld Like a Girl US. But I'll show you. I've got a photograph of the business card that I forgot at home.
I know there's a lot of websites and the social medias to mention with all the projects that you do too. So
right, Project MFG is projectmfg.com. Yeah. My website is weldlikeagirl.us.
So this is the part where I forget everything that we represent. So you can contact us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Is that correct?
That sounds right. They changed our email address.
We have a
so.
new email
Oh,
address.
wow.
Just changed.
Yes. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review, subscribe. And that's about it. So thank you and good day.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited with the help of Brandon Geyer. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Dana Weicker, Mary Diamond, Mike Owens, and me, Sarah Spring. Thank you for listening.